This is a continuation of All Quiet on the Western Front by Remarque, comprising the second part of Chapter 7. It is pleasant to sit quietly somewhere, in the beer garden for example, under the chestnuts by the skittle alley. The leaves fall down on the table and on the ground, only a few, the first. A glass of beer stands in front of me. I've learned to drink in the army. The glass is half empty, but there are a few good swigs ahead of me. And besides, I can always order a second and a third if I wish to. There are no bugles and no bombardments. The children of the house play in the skittle alley, and the dog rests his head against my knee. The sky is blue. Between the leaves of the chestnuts rises the green spire of St. Margaret's Church. This is good. I like it. But I cannot get on with the people. My mother is the only one who asks no questions. Not so my father. He wants me to tell him about the front. He is curious in a way that I find stupid and distressing. I no longer have any real contact with him. There is nothing he likes more than just hearing about it. I realize he does not know that a man cannot talk of such things. I would do it willingly, but it is too dangerous for me to put these things into words. I am afraid they might then become gigantic, and I be no longer able to master them. What would become of us if everything that happens out there were quite clear to us? So I confine myself to telling him a few amusing things. But he wants to know whether I have ever had a hand-to-hand fight. I say no, and get up and go out. But that does not mend matters. After I have been startled a couple of times in the street by the screaming of the tram cars, which resembles the shriek of a shell coming straight for one, somebody taps me on the shoulder. It is my German master, and he fastens on me with the usual question. Well, how are things out there? Terrible, terrible, eh? Yes, it is dreadful, but we must carry on. And after all, you do at least get decent food out there, so I hear. You look well, Paul, and fit. Naturally, it's worse here. Naturally. The best for our soldiers every time. That goes without saying. He drags me along to a table with a lot of others. They welcome me. A headmaster shakes hands with me and says, "So you come from the front? What is the spirit like out there? Excellent, eh? Excellent." I explain that no one would be sorry to be back home. He laughs uproariously. I can well believe it. But first you have to give the froggies a good hiding. Do you smoke? Here, try one. Waiter, bring a beer as well for our young warrior. Unfortunately, I have accepted the cigar, so I have to remain. And they are all so dripping with goodwill that it is impossible to object. All the same, I feel annoyed and smoke like a chimney as hard as I can. In order to make at least some show of appreciation, I toss off the beer in one gulp. Immediately a second is ordered. People know how much they are indebted to the soldiers. They argue about what we ought to annex. The headmaster with the steel watch chain wants to have at least the whole of Belgium, the coal areas of France, and a slice of Russia. He produces reasons why we must have them, and is quite inflexible, until at last the others give in to him. Then he begins to expound just whereabouts in France the breakthrough must come, and turns to me. Now, shove ahead a bit out there with your everlasting trench warfare. Smash through the Johnnies, and then there will be peace. I reply that in our opinion a breakthrough may not be possible. The enemy may have too many reserves. Besides, the war may be rather different from what people think. He dismisses the idea loftily and informs me I know nothing about it. The details, yes, says he, but this relates to the whole, and of that you are not able to judge. You see only your little sector and so cannot have any general survey. You do your duty, you risk your lives, that deserves the highest honor. Every man of you ought to have the Iron Cross. But first of all, the enemy line must be broken through in Flanders, and then rolled up from the top. He blows his nose and wipes his beard. Completely rolled up they must be, from the top to the bottom, and then to Paris. I would like to know just how he pictures it to himself, and pour the third glass of beer into me. Immediately he orders another. But I break away. He stuffs a few more cigars into my pocket and sends me off with a friendly slap. All of the best. I hope we will soon hear something worthwhile from you. I imagine leave would be different from this. Indeed, it was different a year ago. It is I, of course, that have changed in the interval. There lies a gulf between that time and today. At that time I still knew nothing about the war. We had only been in quiet sectors. But now I see that I have been crushed without knowing it. I find I do not belong here anymore. It is a foreign world. Some of these people ask questions, some ask no questions, but one can see that the latter are proud of themselves for their silence. They often say with a wise air that these things cannot be talked about. They plume themselves on it. I prefer to be alone so that no one troubles me. For they all come back to the same thing, how badly it goes and how well it goes. One thinks it is this way, another that, and yet they are always absorbed in the things that go to make up their existence. Formerly I lived in just the same way myself, but now I feel no contact here. They talk too much for me. They have worries, aims, desires that I cannot comprehend. I often sit with one of them in the little beer garden and try to explain to him that this is really the only thing. Just to sit quietly, like this. They understand, of course. They agree. They may even feel it so too. But only with words. Only with words. Yes, that is it. They feel it. But always with only half of themselves. The rest of their being is taken up with other things. They are so divided in themselves that none feels it with his whole essence. I cannot even say myself exactly what I mean. When I see them here, in their rooms, in their offices, about their occupations, I feel an irresistible attraction in it. I would like to be here too and forget the war. But also it repels me. It is so narrow. How can that fill a man's life? He ought to smash it to bits. How can they do it? While out at the front the splinters are whining over the shell holes and the star shells go up. The wounded are carried back on waterproof sheets and comrades crouch in the trenches. They are different men here. Men I cannot properly understand, whom I envy and despise. I must think of Kat and Albert and Müller and Tjaden. What will they be doing? No doubt they are sitting in the canteen, or perhaps swimming. Soon they will have to go up to the front line again. In my room behind the table stands a brown leather sofa. I sit down on it. On the walls are pinned countless pictures that I once used to cut out of the newspapers. In between are drawings and postcards that have pleased me. In the corner is a small iron stove. Against the wall opposite stand the bookshelves with my books. I used to live in this room before I was a soldier. The books I bought gradually with the money I earned by coaching. Many of them are second-hand, all the classics, for example. One volume in blue cloth boards cost 1 mark 20 pfennig. I bought them complete because it was thoroughgoing. I did not trust the editors of selections to choose all the best. So I purchased only collected works. I read most of them with laudable zeal, but few of them really appealed to me. I preferred the other books, the moderns, which were of course much dearer. A few I came by not quite honestly. I borrowed and did not return them because I did not want to part with them. One shelf is filled with schoolbooks. They are not so well cared for, they are badly thumbed, and pages have been torn out for certain purposes. Then below are periodicals, papers, and letters all jammed in together with drawings and rough sketches. I want to think myself back into that time. It is still in the room. I feel it at once. The walls have preserved it. My hands rest on the arms of the sofa. Now I make myself at home and draw up my legs so that I sit comfortably in the corner, in the arms of the sofa. The little window is open. Through it, I see the familiar picture of the street with the rising spire of the church at the end. There are a couple of flowers on the table. Pen, holders, a shell as a paperweight, the inkwell. Here nothing is changed. It will be like this too, if I am lucky, when the war is over and I come back here for good. I will sit here just like this and look at my room and wait. I feel excited, but I do not want to be, for that is not right. I want that quiet rapture again. I want to feel the same powerful, nameless urge that I used to feel when I turned to my books. The breath of desire that then arose from the colored backs of the books shall fill me again, melt the heavy, dead lump of lead that lies somewhere in me, and waken again the impatience of the future, the quick joy in the world of thought. It shall bring back again the lost eagerness of my youth. I sit and wait. It occurs to me that I must go and see Kemmerich's mother. I might visit Mittelsteid too. He should be at the barracks. I look out of the window. Beyond the picture of the sunlit street appears a range of hills, distant and light. It changes to a clear day in autumn, and I sit by the fire with Kat and Albert and eat potatoes baked in their skins. But I do not want to think of that. I sweep it away. The room shall speak. It must catch me up and hold me. I want to feel that I belong here. I want to hearken and know when I go back to the front that the war will sink down, be drowned utterly in the great homecoming tide, know that it will then be past forever, and not gnaw us continually, that it will have none but an outward power over us. The backs of the books stand in rows. I know them all still. I remember arranging them in order. I implore them with my eyes. Speak to me. Take me up. Take me, life of my youth. You who are carefree, beautiful, receive me again. I wait. I wait. Images float through my mind, but they do not grip me. They are mere shadows and memories. Nothing, nothing. My disquietude grows. A terrible feeling of foreignness suddenly rises up in me. I cannot find my way back. I am shut out, though I entreat earnestly and put forth all my strength. Nothing stirs. Listless and wretched like a condemned man, I sit there and the past withdraws itself. And at the same time I fear to importune it too much, because I do not know what might happen then. I am a soldier. I must cling to that. Wearily I stand up and look out of the window. Then I take one of the books, intending to read, and turn over the leaves. But I put it away and take out another. There are passages in it that have been marked. I look, turn over the pages, take up fresh books. Already they are piled up beside me. Speedily more join the heap, papers, magazines, letters. I stand there dumb, as before a judge, dejected. Words, words, words. They do not reach me. Slowly I place the books back in the shelves. Nevermore. Quietly I go out of the room. Still I do not give up hope. I do not indeed go to my room any more, but comfort myself with the thought that a few days are not enough to judge by. Afterwards, later on, there is plenty of time for that. So I go over to see Mittelstadt in the barracks, and we sit in his room. There is an atmosphere about it that I do not like, but with which I am quite familiar. Mittelstadt has some news ready for me that electrifies me on the spot. He tells me Kantorek has been called up as a territorial. Just think of it, says he, and takes out a couple of good cigars. I come back here from the hospital and bump right into him. He stretches out his paw to me and bleats, "Hello, Mittelstadt, how are you?" I look at him and say, "Territorial Kantorek. Business is business and schnapps is schnapps. You ought to know that well enough. Stand to attention when you speak to a superior officer." You should have seen his face. A cross between a dud and a pickled cucumber. He tried once again to chum up, so I snubbed him a bit harder. Then he brought up his biggest guns and asked confidentially, "Would you like me to use my influence so that you can take an emergency exam?" He was trying to remind me of those things, you know. Then I got mad, and I reminded him of something instead. Territorial Kantorek, 2 years ago you preached us into enlisting, and among us there was one, Joseph Bem, who didn't want to enlist. He was killed 3 months before he would have been called up in the ordinary way. If it had not been for you, he would have lived just that much longer. And now, dismiss. You will hear from me later. It was easy to get put in charge of his company. First thing I did was to take him to the stores and fit him out with suitable equipment. You will see in a minute. We go to the parade ground. The company has fallen in. Mittelstadt stands them at ease and inspects. Then I see Kantorek, and am scarcely able to stifle my laughter. He is wearing a faded blue tunic. On the back and in the sleeves, there are big dark patches. The tunic must have belonged to a giant. The black, worn breeches are just as much too short. They reach barely halfway down his calf. The boots, tough old clodhoppers, with turned-up toes and laces at the side, are much too big for him. But as a compensation, the cap is too small, a terribly dirty, mean little pillbox. The whole rig-out is just pitiful. Mittelstadt stops in front of him. "Territorial Kantorek, do you call those buttons polished? You seem as though you can never learn. Inadequate, Kantorek. Quite inadequate." It makes me bubble with glee. In school, Kantorek used to chasten Mittelstadt with exactly the same expression. Inadequate, Mittelstadt. Quite inadequate. Mittelstadt continues to upbraid him. "Look at Butcher now. There's a model for you to learn from." I can hardly believe my eyes. Butcher is there too, Butcher, our school porter. And he is a model. Kantorek shoots a glance at me as if he would like to eat me. But I grin at him innocently, as though I do not recognize him anymore. Nothing could look more ludicrous than his forage cap and his uniform. And this is the object before whom we used to stand in anguish, as he sat up there enthroned at his desk, spearing at us with his pencil for our mistakes in those irregular French verbs, with which afterwards we made so little headway in France. That is barely 2 years ago, and now here stands territorial Kantorek, the spell quite broken, with bent knees, arms like pothooks, unpolished buttons, and that ludicrous rig-out. An impossible soldier. I cannot reconcile this with the menacing figure at the schoolmaster's desk. I wonder what I, the old soldier, would do if this skinful of woe ever dared to say to me again, "Ba, Umer, give the imperfect of Aller." Then Mittelstadt makes them practice skirmishing, and as a favor appoints Kantorek squad leader. Now, in skirmishing, the squad leader has always to keep 20 paces in front of his squad. If the order comes, on the march, about turn, the line of skirmishers simply turns about, but the squad leader, who now finds himself suddenly 20 paces in the rear of the line, has to rush up at the double and take his position again 20 paces in front of the squad. That makes altogether 40 paces double march. But no sooner has he arrived than the order on the march, about turn, comes again, and he once more has to race at top speed another 40 paces to the other side. In this way, the squad has merely made the turnabout and a couple of paces, while the squad leader dashes backwards and forwards like a fart on a curtain pole. That is one of Himmelstoss's well-worn recipes. Kantorek can hardly expect anything else from Mittelstadt, for he once messed up the latter's chance of promotion, and Mittelstadt would be a big fool not to make the best of such a good opportunity as this before he goes back to the front again. A man might well die easier after the army has given him just one such stroke of luck. In the meantime, Kantorek is dashing up and down like a wild boar. After a while, Mittelstadt stops the skirmish and begins the very important exercise of creeping. On hands and knees, carrying his gun in regulation fashion, Kantorek shoves his absurd figure over the sand immediately in front of us. He is breathing hard, and his panting is music. Mittelstadt encourages Kantorek the Territorial with quotations from Kantorek the Schoolmaster. "Territorial Kantorek, we have the good fortune to live in a great age. We must brace ourselves and triumph over hardship." Kantorek sweats and spits out a dirty piece of wood that has lodged in his teeth. Mittelstadt stoops down and says reproachfully, "And in the trifles never lose sight of the great adventure, Territorial Kantorek." It amazes me that Kantorek does not explode with a bang, especially when, during physical exercises, Mittelstadt copies him to perfection, seizing him by the seat of his trousers as he is pulling himself up on the horizontal bar so that he can just raise his chin above the beam, and then starts to give him good advice. That is exactly what Kantorek used to do to him at school. The extra fatigues are next detailed off. Kantorek and Butcher, bread fatigue. Take the handcart with you. A few minutes later, the two set off together, pushing the barrow. Kantorek in a fury walks with his head down, but the porter is delighted to have scored light duty. The bakehouse is away at the other end of the town, and the two must go there and back through the whole length of it. "They've done that a couple of times already," grins Mittelstadt. "People have begun to watch for them coming." "Excellent," I say, "but hasn't he reported you yet?" "He did try. Our CO laughed like the deuce when he heard the story. He hasn't any time for schoolmasters. Besides, I'm sweet with his daughter. He'll mess up the examination for you." "I don't care," says Mittelstadt calmly. "Besides, his complaint came to nothing because I could show that he had had hardly anything but light duty." "Couldn't you polish him up a bit?" I ask. "He's too stupid. I couldn't be bothered," answers Mittelstadt contemptuously. What is leave? A pause that only makes everything after it so much worse. Already the sense of parting begins to intrude itself. My mother watches me silently. I know she counts the days. Every morning she is sad. It is one day less. She has put away my pack. She does not want to be reminded by it. The hours pass quickly if a man broods. I pull myself together and go with my sister to the slaughterhouse to get a pound or two of bones. That is a great favor, and people line up early in the morning and stand waiting. Many of them faint. We have no luck. After waiting by turns for 3 hours, the queue disperses. The bones have not lasted out. It is a good thing that I get my rations. I bring them to my mother, and in that way we all get something decent to eat. The days grow ever more strained, and my mother's eyes more sorrowful. 4 days left now. I must go and see Enrich's mother. I cannot write that down. This quaking, sobbing woman who shakes me and cries out on me. Why are you living then, when he is dead? Who drowns me in tears and calls out, what are you there for at all, child, when you... Who drops into a chair and wails, did you see him? Did you see him then? How did he die? I tell her he was shot through the heart and died instantaneously. She looks at me. She doubts me. You lie. I know better. I have felt how terribly he died. I have heard his voice at night. I have felt his anguish. Tell the truth. I want to know it. I must know it. No, I say. I was beside him. He died at once. She pleads with me gently. Tell me. You must tell me. I know you want to comfort me, but don't you see, you torment me far more than if you told me the truth? I cannot bear the uncertainty. Tell me how it was, and even though it will be terrible, it will be far better than what I have to think if you don't. I will never tell her. She can make mincemeat out of me first. I pity her. But she strikes me as rather stupid all the same. Why doesn't she stop worrying? Enrich will stay dead whether she knows about it or not. When a man has seen so many dead, he cannot understand any longer why there should be so much anguish over a single individual. So I say rather impatiently, he died immediately. He felt absolutely nothing at all. His face was quite calm. She is silent. Then she says slowly, will you swear it? Yes. By everything that is sacred to you? Good God, what is there that is sacred to me? Such things change pretty quickly with us. Yes, he died at once. Are you willing never to come back yourself, if it isn't true? May I never come back if he wasn't killed instantaneously. I would swear to anything. But she seems to believe me. She moans and weeps steadily. I have to tell how it happened, so I invent a story and I almost believe it myself. As I leave, she kisses me and gives me a picture of him. In his recruit's uniform, he leans on a round rustic table with legs made of birch branches. Behind him, a wood is painted on a curtain, and on the table stands a mug of beer. It is the last evening at home. Everyone is silent. I go to bed early. I seize the pillow, press it against myself, and bury my head in it. Who knows if I will ever lie in a feather bed again? Late in the night, my mother comes into my room. She thinks I am asleep, and I pretend to be so. To talk, to stay awake with one another, it is too hard. She sits long into the night, although she is in pain and often writhes. At last I can bear it no longer, and pretend I have just wakened up. Go and sleep, mother. You will catch cold here. I can sleep enough later, she says. I sit up. I don't go straight back to the front, mother. I have to do 4 weeks at the training camp. I may come over from there one Sunday, perhaps. She is silent. Then she asks gently, are you very much afraid? No, mother. I would like to tell you to be on your guard against the women out in France. They are no good. Ah, mother, mother, you still think I am a child. Why can I not put my head in your lap and weep? Why have I always to be strong and self-controlled? I would like to weep and be comforted too. Indeed, I am little more than a child. In the wardrobe still hang short, boys' trousers. It is such a little time ago. Why is it over? Where we are, there aren't any women, mother, I say as calmly as I can. And be very careful at the front, Paul. Ah, mother, mother. Why do I not take you in my arms and die with you? What poor wretches we are. Yes, mother, I will. I will pray for you every day, Paul. Ah, mother, mother. Let us rise up and go out, back through the years, where the burden of all this misery lies on us no more. Back to you and me alone, mother. Perhaps you can get a job that is not so dangerous. Yes, mother. Perhaps I can get into the cookhouse. That can easily be done. You do it then. And if the others say anything? That won't worry me, mother. She sighs. Her face is a white gleam in the darkness. Now you must go to sleep, mother. She does not reply. I get up and wrap my cover round her shoulders. She supports herself on my arm. She is in pain. And so I take her to her room. I stay with her a little while. And you must get well again, mother, before I come back. Yes, yes, my child. You ought not to send your things to me, mother. We have plenty to eat out there. You can make much better use of them here. How destitute she lies there in her bed, she that loves me more than all the world. As I am about to leave, she says hastily, I have 2 pairs of underpants for you. They are all wool. They will keep you warm. You must not forget to put them in your pack. Ah, mother. I know what these underpants have cost you in waiting and walking and begging. Ah, mother, mother. How can it be that I must part from you? Who else is there that has any claim on me but you? Here I sit, and there you are lying. We have so much to say, and we shall never say it. Good night, mother. Good night, my child. The room is dark. I hear my mother's breathing and the ticking of the clock. Outside the window the wind blows and the chestnut trees rustle. On the landing I stumble over my pack, which lies there already made up because I have to leave early in the morning. I bite into my pillow. I grasp the iron rods of my bed with my fists. I ought never to have come here. Out there I was indifferent and often hopeless. I will never be able to be so again. I was a soldier, and now I am nothing but an agony for myself, for my mother, for everything that is so comfortless and without end. I ought never to have come on leave. This concludes the 9th part of 16 total of All Quiet on the Western Front by E.M. Remarque, produced by Best Audiobooks for free.